My stand fan broke at 2 a.m. in the morning and the noise was very loud. The racket was so loud that it awoke me. I will show you how I repaired and cleaned my stand fan. I bought this fan a few years ago and have kept it on most of the day and almost every night while I'm sleeping. That's because Malaysia is a very hot country and with climate change, the weather is getting hotter and hotter. Why did the fan break down suddenly? Actually, some of the screws had loosened and fallen off months ago and I did not notice this. This normally happens when you have equipment that is vibrating or generating some form of noise that will loosen the screws and let them fall off. Upon closer examination, I traced the cause. It was that the 3 screws that held the wire frame casing to the motor had fallen off, and because of that, the frame fell off and was lying on the motor axis that was rotating the fan. And as the fan rotated, it hit against the wire frame casing and made a lot of noise. And that was when I woke up, switched off the fan, removed the wire casing, and put the fan back and switched it on. So it was running without any wire frame casing. And by doing that, there was no more noise, there was cool air blowing, and I could sleep in the hot weather. In the morning, I took apart the fan and found that all the 3 screws that held the wire frame casing to the motor had fallen off. And as a result, the wire frame casing was hanging onto the motor and knocking the fan as it rotated. And it was the cause of all the noise. So I noticed that they were held together, the wire frame casing and the motor were held together by some very short screws. And when I went to the hardware shops to check whether they had such replacement screws, I found out that their screws were much longer. So what I did was I got 2 nuts and screwed them in as a washer, because washers are very thin but the nuts are very thick. And then I decided to put a spring washer in, because the spring washer will introduce some tension and will lock the screw, prevent it from shaking and due to the vibration and falling off, getting loose and falling off. A lot of cheap equipment don't have spring washers in them, and that is why many of them will fail very quickly. With this fan, I think a lot of people are trying to cut costs and save money in their manufacturing operations, and that's why they leave out the spring washers, which is a really bad idea, because the fan only lasted me about 2 to 3 years. If they had put in a spring washer, maybe they would lasted me 5 to 10 years. Ayo, the amount of rubbish that's going on in the manufacturing sector. You won't believe the cost cutting they are doing. It's unbearable. It's terrible. They don't care what the customer experience, how the hardship the customers have to face. Once I screwed back the fan, the wire frame, and got it to work, I dismantled it again and cleaned up the stand fan. Actually, the best way of cleaning up stand fan is don't use any chemicals. I had hoovered the fan a few days earlier and I had removed most of the dust accumulated on the fan. So now what I did was I just used a damp cloth and wiped up the fan. No need for any soap or cleaning liquid or special liquid or chemicals, right? Just use damp moist cloth and you'll pick up all the remaining dust and clean your fan. And that's what I did. Then I screwed back the wire frame and it worked fine, wonderfully. So what I did was I plugged back the base plate, the red plastic base plate that covers the fan cover. And screwed it back into the motor with my extra long screws with the washer, all 3 of them. And then I put back the frame and screwed the frame into the base plate, right? After that, I put in the fan. You can see the 2 notches. And the fan, there's a plastic cap on the fan which you can screw, and screwed it in, lock the fan in position. and then pop back the cover, the front cover, wireframe cover. And the fan started working okay, no problem. Oh, do be careful. A lot of rubbish is being sold in this country. Look at this fan. This is Singapore made fan. Singapore has a very high standard of living. Their rentals are high, the labor is high. How do they make cheap fans? The only thing I can think of is they are making unreliable, low quality stuff that they dump on you, and after a few months or a year, you have to throw it in the bin and buy a new fan. So what happens is that when you buy cheap stuff, right? A lot of equipment you can find cheap stuff, they don't last very long. They may last you 6 months, a year, and then next year you have to buy another one, and next year you have to buy another one, until over the next 10 years you have about 10 such items. And that is how they are manufacturing and making big money out of your interest in cheap stuff. I don't want to say your stupidity, because many of you guys are not engineers or have an engineering background, so you won't understand what's wrong, what's going on, and many of you also won't have accounting background, so you can't see how they have done the costing. It's really cheap stuff they're selling us, and if you spend maybe twice as much and bought a good quality product, it could have lasted you 10 years, right? So you would have had a lot of cost saving by buying a high quality product instead of buying a low cost cheap stuff that makes the factory rich and makes you poor, right? They don't care for you, they only want your money. So just look at this Singapore fan, right? It ran for a few weeks, then the motor blew, and then we had to call the technician in to come and repair it. My mom had to call him because she had just bought the fan, and he couldn't come immediately. We had to wait a few days before he came. So we were sweltering in the heat, and after he repaired it, it blew up again. So my mom said, don't use the Singapore made fan, we'll move it to a place where we never sit down, so let it hang there as decoration. And we moved the other fan back here to the dining area. But that also, you see a lot of fans nowadays, they run very well, high power and fast airflow and all that, cooling and like hell. And then after a few weeks or a few months, it starts to slow down, less air will come through, and then you start sweltering in your own living hell room, right? So a lot of fraud is going on in the industry. Nobody cares for you. Be careful. Nobody cares for you. They only want your money. My dad in the 1960s only bought KDK fans. They were very good and reliable and long lasting. Today there are many other brands which are no good and a waste of money. So do be careful what you get. Ask others what they found to be good and lasted them many years without any problems at all. If you are looking for something more reliable, do consider the industrial fans. They are heavy duty, but they are not as silent as the residential fans, those fans that you bring into your home, but they are long lasting. I hope you have learned a lot from this video. I tried to do things differently. Today I was trying to show you how to do simple non-electrical repairs to your fan. If you don't have an electrical background or electronics background, please don't touch. It's very dangerous. This repair was just about putting 3 screws back and saving you time and money to buy a new fan. That was why I did this. It's a different way of doing things, right? Good, isn't it?